Hello, I'm coming to you from our new studio. I'm here meeting with contractors, architects, so construction can get started very soon. Recently, our ministry team was in Washington, D.C. for the International Religious Freedom Summit and the Religious Freedom in America Conference. These are not Christian events. These are global gatherings where organizations of all faith and all nations converge on Washington, D.C. to advocate, protect, and advance religious freedom for all people, everywhere, all the time. Our ministry team was there as ambassadors representing Jesus Christ and his people in all nations' public squares of business. Please enjoy this Jesus Christ CEO TV interview with our next guest.
Welcome back. We're back with Dr. Brian Grimm. Welcome, Doctor. Thank you for sitting down with us.
Oh, wonderful to be with you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your organization and what you do, and then we'll talk a little bit about IRF.
Sure. So my foundation is called the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation, putting two words together that don't often go together, but we help companies adopt faith-friendly practices, helping people bring not just their whole self to work, but their whole soul to work, which is really good for business because it improves morale, which improves recruitment, retention, and revenue. So faith-friendly businesses are good for business, whether you're a big secular corporation like Accenture or American Airlines, or you're a small business in one town.
Yeah. So, and how do you navigate the IRF, and what do you come here for? And besides speak and pour into all that, tell us a little bit about how IRF interacts with you and your foundation.
Yeah, so for international religious freedom and the summit, the latest data show that we're at a 16-year low in terms of religious freedom around the world. In 192 countries, people are harassed for their faith or belief. That's 97% of countries. Wow. So when you think of problems of religious freedom, it's not something that affects just a few countries you might hear in the news, but it's every country, including the United States, where the FBI reports that faith-related hate crimes are the second most common hate crime in America.
Wow.
So if you're going to solve that epidemic, you could call it global epidemic, you need different tools, additional tools to diplomacy and law and advocacy. You need to be able to have a whole society approach, and that's what I call building religious freedom through workplaces that allow people to bring their whole soul to work. And it may be in a very multicultural, multi-faith situation. That's the world we live in. But that's where religious freedom's involved. That if you're a Christian, you should be able to bring that side of yourself to work, or if you're a Muslim, or if you're an atheist. That's what religious freedom is. And then in that context, that's where iron sharpens iron. You know, we can rub up against each other and exchange ideas. And, you know, that's where truth gets shared, and we share each other's experiences and can love one another in that situation. And I guess that's what I think religious freedom's all about, setting us free to put our faith to practice, which, you know, there are two great commands. Love God and love our neighbor. And what better way to love our neighbor than to make sure they feel that they have religious freedom.
So I want to come back to this number, this 16-year low, because part of your gifting is to analyze and grab this data. Tell us a little bit about how you got this data so that the audience has some faith in this. It's not just some number. I don't want to just to brush over them.
Right. So this is done by looking at human rights reports, including those produced by the State Department. They produce a religious freedom report on every country of the world. So we have all of this information, but how do you decide where the trends are? Well, we code it. We go through and we count up in all of these reports all the instances where governments restrict someone's religious freedom, or groups in society are harassing one another, ranging from terrorism to hate crimes. And then we create indexes that can measure the level of restrictions on religious freedom in each country. And then we've looked at that and compared it with other data, such as surveys where you ask somebody, is it important for you to have religious freedom? Is it important for somebody else in your country with a different religion to have religious freedom? And that's a difference. You know, not everybody says yes to both questions. And so we can compare the data we did in this coding with data like that, and what we find is measuring this same thing, this restriction on religious freedom.
Good. I'm glad you gave a little background, because there's a lot of depth to that, not just half-heartedly creating some number, right?
That's right.
So I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk to you about when you said that, because I said I follow your emails, and for some time people have asked me, do you know Brian? And I said, no, not yet, but we will.
Now we do.
But I want to tell you a little bit about Jesus Christ CEOs, and I want you to give a little, maybe some counsel to Christian CEOs, since this is really your profession and what you do. So our mandate is to restore in all nations the preeminence of Jesus Christ in business, or the public squares of business. We equip business owners to live in covenant as authentic disciples through communion with the Holy Spirit. And then we equip them to consecrate their companies to Jesus, where they are doing business with that abiding presence of Christ through communion with the Holy Spirit, governing all business activities. So we're dealing with some pretty passionate, committed individuals. From your perspective, from our perspective, right, we're just trying to live out our faith with Christ.
Yeah.
But we're going to be hiring people, and we have no problem hiring people as long as they're great for the job. We don't care what their faiths are. We don't care about anything else. But how should that Christian CEO, in your mind, give that same freedom for people who don't share our faith within the company, but still have the Lord ruling, since I'm the owner and that's my choice?
Yeah.
How should a Christian business owner navigate this?
Yeah, well, I think the first principle is that you can't convert someone, right? I mean, people have to come to follow Christ in their own heart.
Right.
So that's not a decision anybody can make for anyone else.
Right.
So you need religious freedom for any faith decision that you're making, to live out your faith, to change your faith, or decide not to have a faith. All that's related to religious freedom. So I think that's the first principle, you know, that wherever you are, you're not trying to, convert people. You're trying to make a space where people have religious freedom to consider deep questions.
Right.
So I think that fits.
Okay.
I think the other thing is to look at some companies, some that I know, like you may know Coca-Cola Consolidated.
Yep.
So the CEO of that's a very devoted Christian, and he's created ministries within the company, one called T Factor, where they are T for transform, and he believes that faith helps transform management style, and they teach that to people across the country. So they're taking faith-based principles, but they'll welcome a Muslim or an atheist, a Hindu.
So they're applying the biblical truths to a particular process, procedure, or value, without quoting biblical addresses.
They don't hesitate to.
They don't.
To quote the Bible in what they're doing, or refer to it. But they say that this works for anybody. If this is true,
yes.
If this is true, and if it's virtuous, it's going to work whether you're a believer or a non-believer. These are good principles. So that's one. The other point that I would make is in the business world, there's a lot of diversity. So you have small mom and pop businesses. You have Coca-Cola Consolidated, the biggest bottler of Coke. Their mission, as they state, is to honor God in all things. And that's a publicly traded company. So you can do these things whether you're a local small business or you're a publicly traded business. It's possible. But it's all part of this sort of religious freedom. And when you have religious freedom, it opens that door to have expression. So we shouldn't be upset if somebody says, well, I want to run my business by Jewish principles. And we should be willing to support that freedom, because it gives us freedom.
Amen.
The same freedom. So it's I don't view having other faiths involved. In fact, I want to support others because that opens the door for everyone.
Right.
So I think for the CEO who's thinking, okay, well, what is their mission? Well, I think you can view the mission as making the door open for religious freedom in the workplace. And it's not our job to convert people.
Right.
So I think that that's often what is felt, and why some CEOs might think, I can't take that step. I'm not going to push my, I don't want to push my religion on others. And I think that's a good, when you have a religious freedom paradigm as helping to define what it means to bring a Christ-centered approach.
Right.
Then that really frees many more CEOs, I think, in my opinion, to engage with this.
I know you talk a lot about how this religious freedom can affect the bottom line and things like that, but I think I want to touch on, because we do believe in transformation, and we do believe in that this freedom can be life-changing.
Yeah.
What is your experience from just a person standpoint when they're, and then maybe how that might apply to work and their job, when they're able to just be who themselves, right? Whether they're Muslims, whether they're Jews, whether they're Christians, what does that do to the company culture?
Yeah.
And maybe efficiencies?
So the CEO of Intel Corporation, Pat Gelsinger, is a very devoted Christian believer. Every morning he tweets a Bible verse, and then here's the latest product from Intel. And he's helped to create a very faith-friendly work culture. They have employee business groups around faith. So there's a Christian group, Muslim group, Jewish group, and so forth within the company. And so he's helps make that space open. And when the change of CEOs came, at one point, the head of the Muslim group said, well, he was watching this, and the old CEO was leaving, the new CEO was coming, he has this faith-friendly environment, and he was just crying. And this is a PhD, an engineer, a tech guy. And he said, why am I crying at this change of CEOs? And he said, it's because I don't have to think twice about whether I can bring my whole soul to work here. And so right there, you have a Christian leader making the space for everyone to bring their whole soul to work.
Yeah.
So I think in that kind of environment, letting people feel that they can tap into that spiritual side is so life-changing. And for him, it changed his whole attitude about work. I can come here. I don't have to hide the fact that I'm a religious believer. And that's what inspires me in life. I had a Hindu person at another big company say, my religion is like my operating system. And he worked in cybersecurity, and he said, it's like that system that's always running in the background. It's always there with me. And you want to encourage that, that our operating system, our spiritual operating system is there. And McKinsey & Company, the great consulting company, has a health institute, and they said there's 4 pillars of health. Spiritual health is one of them.
Yeah.
So from secular companies, they're recognizing this side of people needs to be attended to.
Right.
And I think that's what, the initiatives that you're doing here, it's recognizing, we need to be spiritually healthy. And companies realize that to varying extents, but the research is out there, and it makes a difference.
Yeah. We're here at IRF because we want to be ambassadors for Christ and stand up and say, hey, we want to be able to have that free exercise throughout the nations to live out our faith in business. And what I've learned is whether you're a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian that are really committed with conviction. Jesus Christ CEOs live with great conviction. What advice would you give to the Jewish CEO, the Muslim CEO, and the Christian CEO that has got great conviction? Because you're what I perceive to be an expert in this field of trying to create freedom of religion in business across the board. So for those, because I think that if we have so much conviction, we could almost feel like we're betraying our faith if we make room for this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So encourage us with your expertise why that may not be the case.
Well, I think, for me, I keep coming back to the 2 greatest commandments, to love God and love our neighbors ourselves. And who was the example Jesus gave as a neighbor? The Samaritan, who was a foreigner with a foreign religion. And, his Jewish, compatriots were the ones who failed. And it was this Samaritan who Jesus lifted up as the example of who a neighbor is. So, you know, I know many Muslims, many Jews, many people who of various faiths who are like those Samaritans. You know, they're lifting people up. I'll just give one example. On 9/11, September 11, 2001, I was the academic coordinator at the UAE Military Academy, the United Arab Emirates. So on the Arabian Peninsula, 9/11 happened, and I was called into the general's office, and we were making safety evacuation plans for all of our international faculty, because we had 20,000 Afghans in our town, and they had previously rioted. And we were in the planning session, escape routes, rendezvous points, and, you know, all these details to keep people safe. These are Muslims keeping us safe. And then the prayer call went off. And the general looked over to the sergeant who had been serving us tea, and he said, "Oh, you're better at this. You lead us in prayer." And then the general looked at me and said, "Well, I know you're a Christian. We really would like you to stay here and pray with us." And, you know, right at that moment when we're most vulnerable, if you remember 9/11, everybody was, you know, a gut punch. I mean, we didn't know if planes were going to fly into every building in the world. Here I had Muslims in the workplace keeping me safe and including me. So, you know, they were the Samaritans. And so I think we need to be that same loving protector for everybody in our, you know, that we come across. Being willing to pick that person up that's been left by their side of the road and care for them.
That's a good word. That's a good word. You know, I know you're very busy and high demand here, so I want to thank you for sitting down with JCCO TV and sharing your heart and sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
Yeah, God bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. If our ministry mandate of restoring in all nations the preeminence of Jesus Christ in business and our media mission of telling the world what Jesus is doing in business resonates with you, please support this ministry. Your financial support will help us continue to fulfill the Great Commission as missionaries in the nation's public squares of business. God bless you, and thank you for your prayers and support.